February 8th, 1587. Mary Queen of Scots is executed on suspicion of having been involved in the Babington plot to murder her cousin, Queen Elizabeth I. Her final words were recorded to be, "Your gobshit's gonna chop me fucking head off. Well, I hope you feed it to me fucking cousin and she fucking chokes."
Oh, hey, everyone, it's the Revisionist. I'm Brian Flynn.
Great, I'm Zach Powers. I'm going to skip the Mario thing.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. And we have a very special guest joining us today, best friend of the show, Jen Colick. Everyone.
Hi, it's snowing out.
Wow,
yes.
Best friend of the show. You're the number one friend. You've made it.
I've been upgraded.
Yeah.
That's right, you have our new number one friend package.
Ooh,
which
what
comes
do I
with,
get?
Temporary tattoos.
Peanut butter on the wall.
Yes, we do have some peanut butter on the wall of the studio.
It's a devastating blow for our previous best friend, Mayor Pete Buttigieg.
That's right, our sponsor, Pete Buttigieg. Which...
The podcast, I regret
say his name.
I regret to inform you the podcast no longer has high hopes.
But several billionaire supporters. That's the thing. God. And, I mean, typically guests don't point out the peanut butter on the wall, but I don't think they see it.
Yeah, we're recording much earlier in the day.
Oh, it's peanut butter hours still.
It's still peanut butter hour.
You know, it's 2 o'clock somewhere.
Yeah.
Peanut butter time.
Sure.
Slice up some apples, get to dipping.
Wake up in the morning, smear some peanut butter on the wall, take it off about 2 o'clock.
Yeah, exactly. And all day long, you'll have good luck. That's the saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think that peanut butter is from the time that my cat stepped in the plate of apples and peanut butter I was eating and got peanut butter on her feet and tail and got it on the wall. So that's...
A fascinating tale.
I just
look
don't
for
want...
that next week when we release our This Day in History next time. It'll be February 18th, 2018. Willow steps in some peanut butter and gets it on the wall.
I just didn't want anyone to think that I got that deep into peanut butter that I'm like shooting it everywhere, you know?
Is it chunky or is it smooth?
Oh, always chunky. Anyway.
That's my motto, too. Sorry.
I mean, I don't know what that could possibly mean. And also...
This is a podcast.
Yeah.
This is a podcast that we do sometimes. We had to skip recently because of a confluence of unfortunate events, but we're back.
Yeah.
And better than ever, maybe?
Oh, just firing on all cylinders.
Yeah. And on this podcast, we look at a person or event from history's long tapestry. And we pull that little thread out, take a closer look. And one person gives the sort of true, or should we say, state and or Wikipedia sanctioned version of what happened in regards to that person or event. And another person gives a perhaps a little bit cheeky, a little bit wacky version that could be all kinds of crazy banana, chunky peanut butter cuckoo. And yeah, as wild as you want. Paddington can be in it. You know, it could be a ABBA musical. You know, whatever you want it to be. And,
as long as it's based on those 2 movies.
Yeah. And at the end, we vote on what becomes the true history of this brilliant blue spinning marble we call the Earth going forward.
All right. Last time we talked about, we're talking about famous authors. Last time we talked about good old Christopher Marlowe.
And I believe the actual history of Christopher Marlowe, possible guy who wrote the Shakespeare plays, but actually probably not, won.
And definitely actual anti-Semite. So I regret saying good old.
Yeah.
At least he was maybe stabbed to death.
Yeah, I mean, no, he was definitely.
Oh, he was
stabbed
definitely
death.
stabbed to death. We just don't know why. Okay.
Probably because he was a playwright.
You know, when I was in England, we visited Bath. This was with a school trip. Mm-hmm. And the host said, and I have not ever actually looked this up to verify it, that the reason that Shakespeare got pneumonia allegedly was that he was out drunk one night and it was raining and he hid in a bush. So this is how people die.
Probably true.
Yeah.
And that's how Shelley died.
Yeah.
Mary Shelley? She got drunk and hid in a bush?
Well, Percy Shelley.
Oh, Percy Shelley. That makes more sense.
Wait, I thought he like fell overboard on a ship.
No, I think that actually was the reason that he died. Like he fell overboard on a ship and drowned or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Mary Shelley just kept his heart in a box.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, it sounds like her MO.
She was a more respectable romantic. She didn't like get drunk and like stay out in the rain. She just kept her dead husband's heart in a fucking box.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the Frankenstein way, as they say.
Yeah.
They didn't have like a Facebook like tribute page you could keep open.
Yeah, to write on his wall. Post an Instagram picture of his heart in a box every year, being like increasingly rotting and moldy.
Still
miss you every day, Percy.
She gets like a giant window decal on the back of her Ford Focus.
Yeah, exactly. I believe this week we're talking about Edna St. Vincent Millay?
Yes, indeed. And Jen is going to be doing the true story.
I am actually super excited about this.
Yeah.
I feel like it was a lucky snowstorm because she is one of my favorites.
Yeah. I mean, you have a like an ass load of books on Millay.
I mean, I have 2 books about her, and then I have a couple of her actual books of poetry and stuff. I guess that qualifies as an ass load.
I mean,
I guess it
the number of
depends.
books most people have about specific writers.
One of her
I guess.
biographies is
It
a
depends.
fucking doorstopper, too. It's huge.
It depends upon the ass. A J-Lo ass? No, probably not. A Pete Buttigieg ass? That'll probably do it.
And I gotta tell you, we gotta get the booty judge in here to.
I don't
to
know.
judge the loads of those asses.
I don't know for sure, but I feel like Pete Buttigieg has a very flat ass.
Oh, 100%. It's actually kind of convex.
Okay.
Anyway, I regret everything.
Sorry, I just made an awful face.
Was that more talking about Pete Buttigieg or the butts?
Both.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, no, like no one wants to hear about convex butt.
It's a very common syndrome, and the silence is actually part of the problem.
That's right. There's like an ice bucket challenge where you dump a bucket of ice on your butt.
That's not going to help it grow.
Wow.
I mean, they didn't think that the ice bucket was going to help whatever that disease was. It wasn't like a cure.
It was ALS, and it was raising awareness, and 3 clearly did not help.
No, it did not.
Yeah.
I don't even
It wasn't
know what
like it was
ALS
called,
is.
it wasn't called like the polio vaccination challenge, where Salk was like, I nominate Charles Lindbergh.
It's fair. Medicine has gotten much dumber over the last century.
I mean, in no way do I think any of that was done by actual doctors.
No, I know.
It's not their, let's not bring them into this. It's not their fault.
Fair enough.
They're doing the best they can.
Under the circumstances.
Yeah.
So whenever you're ready.
Yeah, so I surprise did not actually use much Wikipedia for my actual history. My main sources were my own knowledge.
Flex, yeah. Earned flex.
Yes. Poets.org, poetryfoundation.org, the Edna St. Vincent Millay Society. And I just want to plug 2 books if you are interested in learning more about Edna St. Vincent Millay, because she was really, really interesting. Her official biography is Savage Beauty by Nancy Milford, which, as I said earlier, is just a gigantic book. It's also kind of dry because my understanding is that her family was involved in the writing of the book. And I think they basically could preserved and so controlled access to a lot of her own personal writings and stuff.
It's like how
that
the rest
access to.
It's like how the rest of Queen clearly made Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah.
So they all look pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Freddie looks like a crazy person.
I was going to say, Freddie Mercury's dentist had no involvement in the script.
And then the other one is What Lips My Lips Have Kissed by Daniel Mark Epstein. That one is the one with all the fun stuff in it. Basically, it's all about her love poems and all the people that she fucked. And
that was actually the original title.
Yes. Well, it's part of the title of one of her poems, which the original title of the poem actually was just a list of people I fucked. But that wasn't.
Oh,
it wasn't iambic pentameter.
She
so
later
she had to
rewrote
change
it as fuck list.
Yeah.
there's a podcast called Dudes We Fucked, I'm pretty sure, and I wonder.
Nice.
Started by Edna St. Vincent Millay.
Yeah.
So, before I start with she was born wherever, just a quick bullet pointed list of some interesting stuff about her. She was, in my opinion, the last great romantic poet. She was a feminist. She was bisexual. She was a contemporary of Robert Frost, and she was also a Pulitzer winner. So poet and playwright Edna St. Vincent Millay was born in Rockland, Maine on February 22nd. Hey, close. 1892. She grew up in nearby Camden. From the age of 8, she was raised by her mother, Cora, who divorced, this was, I think I found this on poets.org, the frivolous Henry Millay. Which almost certainly means he was a lazy drunk and bad with money.
Yeah, no, that is what I remember reading on Wikipedia.
Yeah,
so
literally,
the frivolous.
1900, she divorces this guy. It's 1900.
I'm divorcing
and she's
you on
like,
grounds of being a real goofus.
Yeah, and she's just
I'm
like,
looking for a gallon.
Fuck you, I'm done. Exactly. Well, she wasn't though.
Yeah, no, that's.
She was kind of done after that. She was just like, all right, I'm gonna work. I'm gonna get a job myself, and I'm gonna raise my 3 daughters by myself. And she did. They were insanely poor. And they lived in a really shitty part of town. Despite this, Cora always encouraged creativity in her daughters. Maine, I don't know if you guys know, is heavily forested and mountainous, and Camden is directly on the coast, and the winters there are absolutely brutal.
Yeah, most of my exposure to Maine is definitely there are a lot of demon clowns, vampires,
Yeah.
reanimated
cars.
pets, yeah,
Yeah.
things of that nature.
Even when you go to quote unquote the beach in Maine, it's a bunch of fucking rocks. That's the beach in Maine.
There's lobsters pulling up doing drive-bys.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's rough.
So the upshot of this is that Edna St. Vincent Millay grew up extremely poor, in a house full of women fending for themselves, in a just absolutely wild place. So keep all of this in mind going forward. So in 1912, at the age of 20, when she was much younger, she would send poems to children's magazines and stuff. And so at the age of 20, she entered her poem Renaissance into the Lyric Years Poetry Contest. When the anthology was published, her poem was widely considered the best submission. And when it was ultimately awarded 4th place, it created a scandal which brought Millay a lot of publicity.
The Elizabeth Warren story.
Exactly. Well, except in this context, the first prize winner was I'm a little embarrassed because clearly this other poem was better than mine. And the second place winner offered to give her his prize money.
And a clarification, I also like Bernie. Don't yell at me on Twitter because I also don't check it.
Tweet everything at Mike Bloomberg.
Yeah.
Twitter.
Yeah.
Josen Robinette Biden, open for your...
I just want to say I don't like Bernie because fuck all of you. And I don't have Twitter, so get fucked. So anyway, this poem, Renaissance, it's one of her most famous poems. She wrote it when she was 20, again. It describes a life-altering spiritual awakening, and she submitted it under the name E. Vincent Millay. I think partly because her family had always called her Vincent, but also probably partly because it was fucking 1912, you guys. So readers and critics all assumed the author was both older and male, and in a note to the editor, another poet in the book, Arthur Fick, who would become her lifelong friend, surmised, "No sweet young thing of 20 ever ended a poem where this one ends. It takes a brawny male of 45 to do that."
This poem's got balls, is
Exactly.
what I'm saying.
Exactly.
Actual testicles.
Like truck nuts, except on a poem. To which Millay responded, "I simply will not be a brawny male. I cling to my femininity. No thank you, Arthur Fick." You know what rhymes with Fick?
What?
Tick. The Tick, the web series, yeah, of course, Patrick Warburton.
I was going to say prick, but, whatever.
Click, the movie with Adam Sandler.
Oh, yes, that's exactly what I meant. Mm-hmm. Wait, what?
Where he has a magic remote that Christopher Walken gives him that, it changes his life or some shit. I don't know.
When did that come out? The 90s?
The 2000s.
The 2000s. They were
early
time,
2000s.
Man.
Christopher Walken, I think Christopher Walken bequeaths him with the God Controller.
So Christopher Walken is God?
He might be the devil or just fate. He's either the god, the devil, or fate. The god.
Two of those.
Hey, man. Aren't we all?
I mean, two of those make much more sense than the other. Okay, so she got a lot of publicity around the Lyric Year controversy, and wealthy arts patron Caroline B. Dow soon after heard Millay reciting her poetry and playing the piano at the Whitehall Inn in Camden, Maine. She was so impressed with Millay's performance that she offered to pay for her education at Vassar College. This is like the only way she ever could have gone to college. So it was kind of incredible. So at Vassar, she continued to write poetry. She became involved in the theater. She was in school plays. She was the editor of the school literary magazine. She also had lots of girlfriends. And she was kind of an asshole because she would play them against one another.
Okay.
Yeah, she was kind of an asshole, and a very notorious flirt. And she got in trouble for breaking school rules a fair amount. She was almost not allowed to graduate because right before graduation, she was caught off campus.
Wait, that's it?
That's a thing. And I don't remember the specific context of it, but she was I think caught off campus with someone she maybe shouldn't have been with. And the school principal, or the dean or whoever the fuck, intervened at the last minute. Yeah. And was basically she's probably the next Shelley. Let's just let her graduate. It's just fine.
Classic Harry Potter shenanigans.
I know, right? So in 1917, which is the year she graduated college, she published her first book of poetry. And she also, at the request of Vassar's drama department, wrote her first verse play, The Lamp and the Bell, which is a work about love between women. After graduating, she went straight to New York City and moved to the Village, where she actually lived with her sister Norma in a 9-foot wide attic, which sounds exactly right.
Jesus.
And She published a bunch of poems in like Vanity Fair and in the Forum. She wrote short stories and satire under the pen name Nancy Boyd, and she and her sister acted with the Provincetown Players in it says in the group's early days, which I guess is at the same time.
Sorry, do you mind if I...
Oh, no, go for it.
Because I'm a big fan of the Provincetown Players. Because, like, that's Susan Glaspell, prominent, like, modern American playwright. Eugene O'Neill. A lot of these big fuckers in the theater world.
You know, it's really funny. In all of the sources that I was looking at, they're like name dropping like Witter Binner and like Edmund Wilson and Floyd Dell and Susan
Witter
Gospel.
Binner chicken dinner.
Yeah. And like no one mentions Eugene O'Neill.
God damn it. It was the earnestness. Just the joy, the spark in Zach's eyes that really made that.
He looks
me.
very satisfied right now.
I mean, me too. Smoking a cigarette. Fucking.
So it was during this time, their early years living in the village, that Millay also wrote an anti-war play, which Norma starred in. And remember, this was like around the time of World War I. So put a pin in that, and we'll come back to it. So Millay spent the early 1920s cultivating her lyrical works, which by 1923 included 4 volumes. She published A Few Figs from Thistles in 1920, which drew attention for its controversial depictions of female sexuality and feminism. In 1923, she was awarded the Pulitzer Prize for The Ballad of the Harp Weaver. Harriet Monroe, like during this time, Harriet Monroe, who was the founder and editor of Poetry Magazine, wrote of Millay how neatly she upsets the carefully built walls of convention which men have set up around their ideal woman. She also suggested that Millay might perhaps be the greatest woman poet since Sappho. In addition to publishing 3 plays in verse, Millay also wrote the libretto of one of the few American grand operas called The King's Henchman. That wasn't until 1927. I don't know why I put that there. During this time, she also had lots of affairs with men and women. Refusing the marriage proposals of 3 of her literary contemporaries, Millay married Eugene Bossavin. I think that's how you say his name. He's not really important. In July of 1923. The 43-year-old son of a Dutch newspaper owner, Bossavin was a businessman with no literary pretensions, which is exactly what she needed. So he was apparently handsome, robust, and sanguine. He was
robust and sanguine.
I know, right?
Hello,
what a combination.
Doctor.
Yeah.
They say handsome, robust, and sanguine choose 2, but I guess she really lucked out.
He had the whole package. Plus his first wife was dead. He was a widower. He had once been married to feminist Inez Milholland, and he did not expect domesticity from Millay, which he was probably the only fucking one who didn't, and that's why she married him.
I mean, he was very sanguine.
Well, and that's the thing. Like yeah, she could have.
Don't forget his robustness.
Yes, exactly. He was robust in his desire to support Millay's own career.
Yes.
If she had married like one of the editors that was like fighting over her, they probably would have tried to destroy her career and turn her into a housewife. So this was ideal. He gave up his own pursuits to manage Millay's literary career, setting up the readings and public appearances for which Millay grew famous. They were together for 26 years. And by the way, like her public readings were kind of legendary. She was this very petite woman who had like wild long red hair. and she was she was obviously very like theatrical in her delivery, in her readings, and like she had a very commanding presence.
Sorry, I wanted to see how handsome this fool was.
Not super handsome.
I mean, he definitely looks robust.
Definitely looks
And
robust.
sanguine.
Yeah. Not super
Sanguine.
handsome.
Okay, so it was actually Choose too.
Yeah.
They were lying.
Yeah.
I mean,
Hey, I'd be okay with it. If he brought me breakfast in bed every day while I worked on my poetry, I would be fine with it. So Millay suffered from intestinal ailments all her life, and in fact, her husband took her to the hospital for emergency surgery on their wedding day. This was also around the time that she had been awarded the Pulitzer, and she joked, "If I die now, at least I'll be immortal." Yeah. For the disillusioned post-war, and by this we mean, of course, post-World War I, youth who considered her their spokesperson for women's rights and social equality, Millay represented the rebellious spirit of their generation. I think this is from the Edna St. Vincent Millay like society. Though she favored traditional poetic forms like lyrics and sonnets, she boldly reversed conventional gender roles in poetry, empowering the female lover instead of the male suitor, and set a new shocking precedent by acknowledging female sexuality as a viable literary subject. Remember, women only gained the right to vote in 1920. So this is like big shit. So in 1920, are you laughing at big shit?
yeah, I'm laughing at big shit.
It's a big deal. No one else was like, everyone else was like, are women too stupid and emotional to vote? Can we trust them? And she's just like owning everyone, basically. Okay. So in 1925, Millay and her husband bought an abandoned berry farm in Austerlitz, New York, which is a couple of hours north of the city. Her fans were really surprised because they thought of her as like one of them, as like this bohemian of Greenwich Village. But if you remember her childhood, like she didn't really want to be in the city. She needed quiet to write, and she really missed the outdoors. So they fixed the place up. They named it Steepletop, and Millay wrote 8 more books and the opera that I mentioned earlier at Steepletop. She was totally in her element. She was surrounded by nature. She gardened, she collected and pressed wildflowers, and she kept a list of all the birds that she saw. She was like totally into it.
I just had a thing where I'm like, it's too bad houses don't have names anymore. And then the thought that immediately followed was like, I'm never going to own a house. What do I give a shit?
No, our apartment has a name, though.
Yes.
We decided to move in together when we were in Reykjavik, so all of our apartments we call the Longhouse. Mm-hmm. I highly recommend
not a
it.
name like Craig or something.
Yeah, fuck that. First of all, fuck Craig. Like,
Yeah.
Craig, if you're listening, turn this off. We don't want you.
I guess that's also
And of
not
course-
a house name.
That in reference to Daniel Craig. Get out of here, Daniel Craig.
Actually, Daniel Craig is okay.
Yeah. Ben
Craig
Lavoie,
Robinson is
come on.
okay. Yeah.
No, it's more like a Harry and the Henderson situation where this podcast is preventing him from making the next Knives Out sequel, and it's like, get out of here. We don't want you. Go back to Ryan Johnson.
Oh, no.
Oh, a Harry and the Hendersons. You know, that classic, that archetype.
Yeah, that archetype. That is,
You know, a Sasquatch living with a family.
I think the thing where you yell at an animal to make it go away when you actually love it is, for most people, definitely a Harry and the Hendersons.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm out of touch. I don't know.
I've never seen Harry and the Hendersons, but I still know what he's talking about, so he might be right.
Okay.
It's definitely a cultural touchstone.
I mean, I wouldn't go that far. Also, I think there's some middle ground. Anyway,
So I definitely tried to like get a little of her personality in here also. So I found an excerpt from her garden diary. Did all my weeding without a stitch and got a marvelous tan.
Sorry, I'm reading over your shoulder.
She's like working in the garden naked, basically, which I think is you can't
without
do
a
that.
stitch.
Yeah,
Got it.
like you can't do that in the village.
Yeah,
This is exactly her point. Anyway, there was also something else I found on the Society website. Millay's most private domain was her small library at the top of the stairs, where she wrote and consulted the hundreds of research books assembled there, including a classical encyclopedia and a huge Oxford dictionary mounted on a wooden stand. Sploosh.
Copyright Archer.
The walls were lined with poetry collections in English, Italian, French, German, Latin, and Greek, and books of fiction, nonfiction, and poetry, many personally inscribed by the authors. On a rafter in the center of the room, a hand-painted wooden sign demanded silence. So this is kind of the place where she did most of her work, and where she spent this is the place that she was happiest in her life. And again, one thing I want to point out, her husband really did take care of everything. He took care of the whole house. He did all the cooking. He literally would bring her breakfast in bed while she was like writing. And the thing I think that I kind of take away from that is like the biographies of her where you see this stuff mentioned. It's just like, oh, he's so devoted, he's so wonderful. But that was the reality for most artists and writers throughout history. That like she basically found a secretary and then married him so she didn't have to pay him. And that was exactly the thing that male artists and writers did throughout history. Like they got married so they didn't have to pay a housekeeper. And none of that domestic work that enabled them to do their artistic work is like ever acknowledged. And I think the only reason it's acknowledged here is because the genders are reversed.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to point that out and bring the party down a little bit and make you guys frown thoughtfully at me for a second.
That's, I think, definitely true. I was still having like a fond memory of, do you guys remember John Carroll Lynch's character in Fargo? I had flashbacks to that character when talking about Eugene, and he was definitely robust and sanguine in that film, I think.
Oh, is that Marge's husband?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm sure, like,
Yes.
obviously
Yes.
your description was very mercenary, but I think there's a good chance that they also cared deeply about each other beyond just having
No, I like she like definitely did.
yeah.
And you know, you can see that like it's especially obvious like after he dies, like she's basically adrift. She doesn't, you know, but it's also that she's also kind of helpless in a way because she depended on him for everything.
I see.
So it's a little bit of both. So yeah, I mean, you know, he was probably awesome, but okay. So by the late 1930s, Millay's physical health was in decline. And keep in mind, she was only in her early 40s. Partly because of she had an unfortunate accident, which is not described anywhere that I saw in 1936, that had left her in severe pain, which she relieved with regular and increasingly addictive doses of morphine. So this is where things get fun. And by fun, I mean awful. So in 1940, as war approached in Europe, she became extremely pro-war and published a hastily written book of quote-unquote propaganda poems that alienated even her most supportive critics. And this is like one of the things that... It's one of the only things that seems very out of character for her to me. But I can totally understand. Like she was very anti-war around World War I. And then she was very, very pro-war during World War II. And it's like, well,
Very
like
different
World
situation.
Yeah,
War-
the
yeah,
circumstances
World
are
War
pretty
I was
wildly different.
insanely pointless.
Yeah.
And it's But at the same time, like, there were a lot of dedicated pacifists who took a lot of shit for it during World War II. And to me, it may be because she was so determined to go her own way every other aspect of her life, that it feels to me a little bit like she's just doing the easy thing. She's doing like the popular thing. And because she wasn't, aside from her feminism, like, she wasn't super political otherwise. Mm-hmm. She, for instance, like, around World War I, when she was living in the village, like, she was friends with a lot of people who were socialists, and she kind of flirted with the idea because of the aspect of equality. Mm-hmm. But she never became like a socialist or a communist herself. So she was very, aside from her feminism, which was, of course, very white, she has this reputation as like a very controversial and very iconoclastic, very stubborn person who is like so ahead of her time. But I don't know, there's something about like her writing a book of propaganda poetry that just creeps me out. Sure. And is just like, there's okay, not always, like, she's not just the one thing. Like, she did some stuff that I am not crazy about also.
Yeah, but there was also like a quote I was reading doing like my background for the alternate history that was like, I mean, paraphrasing, like, she got more shit for supporting democracy than Ezra Pound got for supporting fascism. From like,
that's completely true.
Poetry community.
Yeah, no, that's completely true. Yeah, and I think there are definitely layers of other politics on that.
In terms of political stances you could have in the 1930s, being for fighting Hitler is not the worst one by any stretch of the imagination.
Exactly.
Like, it's definitely not, but she was so dedicated to her art and to making a certain kind of art and to being so uncompromising with that it's not so much to me like, oh, that she was like anti-fascist. Like, of course that's fine. But like the way that she like basically published a book of like propaganda, like, to me that's way creepy. And she had like, she took commissions from like the War Department or something during that time. Like,
if she was largely unable to live by herself and also addicted to morphine, do you suspect it was like a cash grab almost?
I don't think so. It might have been. I don't really.
Encouragement.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have enough information about like what her finances were like at that period of her life to say. But yeah, it's something that doesn't sit well with me.
Sure. But I mean, also going back, I love the understatement of being an anti-fascist is fine.
It's like that's not the right, thing I have an issue with.
No,
yeah.
I know.
Yeah. But anyway, so we're in the 1940s. So over the rest of this decade, several people close to her died, including her sister Kathleen, her beloved editor Gene Saxton, and her dear friend Arthur Fick, who at first thought she was a dude. Mm-hmm. She ended up in the hospital for, quote, mental and emotional exhaustion. And then in 1949, her husband was diagnosed with lung cancer and died suddenly after surgery in Boston. So in the span of like less than 10 years, 4 people very close to her, including her husband, die. She is totally devastated. She decided to keep living at Steepletop alone to try to work through her grief. She refused to see visitors, and she unplugged the phone because she missed hearing his voice when he answered a call. So Millay found life without her husband difficult and lonely, but her notebooks show that after several months of grieving, she began to move towards rebuilding her life and continuing to live on her own. But about a year after her husband's death, she had started working on a new book of poems, but in October of 1950, after an evening at home proofing Latin poetry translations and possibly taking morphine or drinking, she slipped and fell down the stairs to her death. She was 58. And her sister Norma actually had the book she was working on published after her death. And that is the story of Edna St. Vincent Millay.
All right. That brings us to Brian for the alternate.
All right. So, for the alternate, our story, it picks up in 1912, after, how did you pronounce it? Renaissance?
Renaissance. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah, there was something I read online that was like, oh, it's just an alternate spelling of Renaissance, but it
might be.
Look like it's pronounced like that at all. It's a dumb word. English is a dumb language. Anywho. So that poem is published by the Lyric Year in their annual contest, and it wins 4th place, just like my man Joey Biden. Nope, not at all. Let me tell you, sometimes the best way to do something is to not do anything. Joe Biden.
Oh my God. Is that an endorsement or a criticism? I can't even tell.
It's I like to consider it satire. God damn it. Ugh.
Well, you're not a boomer, so you can't possibly be fucking serious.
For Joe Biden
Yeah.
in the primary.
No.
Anyway,
I feel like I have not watched The Crown, but something I heard recently is that there's one scene every season where whoever's playing the queen is like, sometimes the best thing a queen can do is nothing at all. And it's just like constantly about how Queen Elizabeth is like, I ain't getting involved in that shit.
Well, and I think like traditionally and culturally, like that is how the monarchy now is supposed to operate. Like,
sure.
She's not supposed to take a public stance on most political issues.
Yeah, it's just a strange thing for a television show. For every season, the theme is like, don't do anything.
Don't get involved.
No
millennials.
conflicts, please. So there's a large public kerfuffle because everyone is like, this poem really should have won this shit. What the fuck? And this sort of publicly shames the Lyric Year as a publication, and this is where the trouble really begins, because the Lyric Year, like the entire poetry community at this time in American history, is deeply mobbed up. They run the poetry racket, basically. So all of the poetry magazines, all the chapbooks.
The way you said the trouble made me think you were going to tie this to the IRA somehow.
Oh my God.
Not yet. Let's see where I take this. There's the mob controls poetry magazines, chapbooks, even going so far as to control the U.S. Poet Laureate at the time, Nico Two Legs DeRossi. I just realized I nicknamed him Two Legs, which is just like
a normal number of legs. The traditional number. For humans.
So, and then that brings us to the question: who is the power behind the lyric year? Well, if you rearrange the letters in the title, you get Harry T. Celery, the mafioso behind lyric year. Harry, as in hirsute, not short for Harold. He had hair in all the places.
But what kind of places?
His face, chest, all the places you'd expect an Italian person.
So much like Two Legs, it's just that he had hair where people normally have hair.
Yeah. You're getting it. You're getting it. You're picking it up.
All of the mobs, this mob's thing was giving nicknames that were normal things that apply to most people.
Yeah.
So they were really bad at giving nicknames.
He says everything exactly one time.
Oh my god.
I think that's a joke from something else. Anyway, so Mr. Celery.
It's a Mr. Show joke. There's a mobster who refuses to repeat himself when someone asks him to.
Oh, god damn it. That's right. Okay. So Mr. Celery puts a hit out on Edna St. Vincent Millay. And so the first hitter, Jimmy the Chin.
Wait, why did they put a hit out on her? Because she embarrassed them?
Yeah.
Because
basically.
they didn't know that her poem was better than everyone else's?
Yeah, exactly. Because, they're supposed to be the poetry guys.
That's true. Okay.
So Jimmy the Chin, the first hitter, pulls up on her outside a Mediterranean restaurant she's eating at. And he's coming up behind her, but she sees his reflection in a piece of polished brass.
Jimmy the Chin, so named because he had a chin.
Yeah.
Of normal shape and size.
I think there's one more. Okay, there's one more nickname in here. Okay. So she sees him coming up on her in a piece of polished brass. So just on instinct, she grabs a fig from a passing server and throws it, and it goes right down the Chin's throat, and he chokes to death. And that's she would later write the poem "First Figs," which appears in A Few Figs from Thistles about the incident.
And this is when she got the nickname One Shot Millay.
Yeah. And then the second hitter, Tony Tarantula, finds
because he had a pet tarantula.
I'm sure, yeah, or he just liked.
To be fair, that is not a thing most humans do. Mm-hmm. So
that's right. That was actually just his family name, also.
I see. It's not a nickname. His last name was literally Tarantula.
Yeah. No, his
it's
nickname
pronounced
was
Tarantella.
Tarantella. Thank you. Sorry. So he finds Millay feeding birds at a park. Again, coming up on her, and she dumps her extra breadcrumbs on him, and he's killed by a hungry pack of swans.
The Home Alone 2 trick.
I don't know what. This definitely doesn't go into Home Alone territory in 30 seconds.
In Home Alone 2, at the end, the bird lady throws seed on the wet bandits.
That's right. Motherfucker.
And this is how they are defeated.
We'll get to that.
No, we won't.
I think we just did.
And then writes the poem Wild Swans, commemorating the incident. So now Harry Celery is mad. And that's when a crew of freelancers, two guys named Harry Lime and Marv Merchants, come into the picture.
Harry Lime is just the name of the third man guy.
I mean, it's also the name of one of the two wet bandits.
Oh, right. He's named after... I forgot that he was named after... Yep. Yeah. Okay.
I found this on the Home Alone wiki, by the way, which is a thing that exists.
We hang out in very different places on the internet.
To be fair, I don't hang out there. I just Googled it. So
it is your homepage. We all know it's your homepage when you open
page. Yeah.
It's the link in your aim away message.
Yeah, with the fucking dashboard lyric, whatever. So Edna St. Vincent Millay is home by herself in Austerlitz, New York. And she sees the two wet bandits coming up on her, so she has enough time to rig her house with a series of booby traps. And so the first one is the wet bandits open the door, and a bag of tools that have been balanced above the doorframe falls on them, and then their heads are burned with a makeshift flamethrower. And after that, they're about to chase Millay up the stairs. They dodge 2 flying paint cans, and then they're both hit by a giant lead pipe. And as
So this is, again, Home Alone 2 specific.
Yes. The one I prefer. And so as they're lying on the ground, Millay cuts the rope holding the lead pipe above them, and it hits them one more time. Now, you might be thinking, that's enough to kill a man. Well, you are correct. They are both dead. Really, they were dead when the pipe hit them the first time.
And Edna gets a new nickname.
Yes.
Lead Pipe Millay.
Yeah. And St. Vincent Kevin McAllister Millay. And so she buries the bodies, and then she falls down the stairs and dies.
Oh,
I know. I didn't
what
have
an
an
ending.
I can cut that.
Okay. No. That's there you go. I think it's good.
I mean, how do you keep living after that?
Okay. Yeah.
Not even like, and then realizing what she's done, she's overcome with remorse and flings herself down the stairs.
No, I don't want to.
In the same location that she killed these men.
I don't even want to discuss it. I think we move on to plugs as fast as possible. No rationalization. Coincidentally, she fell down the stairs.
So,
life is random. Life is chaos. This is what happened.
listeners,
Zach is not even smiling.
Well, because he's realizing the capriciousness of life.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unfair to even say capriciousness, but life regards us not at all. Anyway, listeners, did you know you could write us a letter? Leave us a comment at revisionistpodcast.com or
send us alternate endings to Brian's alternate history at revisionistpodcast.com.
Yeah, or revisionistpodcast at gmail.com. Or on Twitter or Instagram. Also, I typically put in a little pre-recorded thing about the Patreon, but I want to say right now that I've recently redesigned the Patreon support tiers with some new rewards and basically just streamlining it so it's easier and more manageable to support the show. So if you can, that would be great. And if not, don't worry about it. It's cool. Anyway.
Yeah, write a review also on iTunes.
Oh, yes. Review on iTunes is very helpful.
And you don't have to pay money for that part.
Yes.
So, go for it.
Zach, did you want to plug anything?
I'll just plug once again the Little Women Modern Audio podcast that is being directed and produced and all that good stuff by former guest Shannon Camp, in which I play the role of Lori. So you can find that wherever you got this, you can also get that.
Perfect. Jen, do you want to?
Yeah, I think I'm going to start a new tradition or continue my previous tradition of plugging food items every time I'm on the show.
Okay.
So today I would like to plug these Sour Patch Kids that I got from IKEA when we were there. So they're like IKEA brand like Sour Patch Kids basically, but they're really tasty. They're Swedish and they're very sour. Also, vote, but not for Joe Biden, please. Like, vote
Or
if you're
Pete
gonna vote.
Buttigieg.
If you're gonna vote in the Democratic primary, just stop voting for men. God damn it! Just do something different with your life. Do something that matters. Okay. God.
I mean, I was going to ask about Mike Bloomberg, but I'm kidding. Jesus Christ. No one wants that.
No one wants that.
As for me, listeners, register to vote if you haven't.
Aside from the fact that he's not a real Democrat, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not over it.
Bloomberg. We all know I'm a Deval Patrick diehard.
Sure.
Jesus, sorry.
You're in Colorado. Where's the Bennett love?
Oh, I forgot he was still in forgot he was still only technically in the race. Yeah, Jesus. Sorry. Excuse me. As for me, register to vote. And then
vote for a woman.
And then also that. Check out my writing in Westward. Go to westward.com. Search for Brian Flynn. That's Brian with an I. Flynn with a Y. And give me some clicks.
You have other pieces on your personal website also, don't you?
Oh yeah, I have a personal website. FlynnComedy.com. Anyway, that brings us to Judgment, which falls on Zach's shoulders.
Let me ask you a question. That thing about the swans attacking, did you truly forget that was a thing in Home Alone 2?
I did.
It's so serendipitous that I don't think it erases anything else she did. It doesn't erase her poetry or her work. It just means I gotta go with the alternate. I got it.
I looked
And
up.
you know what? The ending is fine. In real life, she just fell down the stairs. It's fine. That's what happens sometimes.
It is true, and it's tragic, but I did also look up.
It's not like it's better
No.
or worse or anything, it's the same. That part's the same.
I did look up, just like list of, Home Alone traps, and there was one site that had like the 26 deadliest Home Alone traps ranked.
Wow.
Can you please put this on all your revisionist social media?
It is, in fact, on our Instagram story right now, but that doesn't matter to people listening tomorrow.
I'll assumedly still be there tomorrow.
Yes. But Jen, thank you for being here.
Of course. I mean, I'm here.
Yeah.
It's still snowing. I'm not going anywhere.
Well, thank you for filling in.
Oh, you're welcome.
Zach, thank you as always.
Sure.
And hey, everyone out there, thank you.
Great.
Josh Hollis for our artwork.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we'll see you again in a couple of weeks around these parts. Signing off is very hard. I've been Brian Flynn.
I am Zach Powers.
Get along, little doggies.
Let's not
Have a good time.
let's not change horses this late in the game.